Welcome to episode 5 of the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, I aim to entertain, inform, and hopefully promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the scale model hobby. First of all, I'd like to thank Jeff Hodgins again for coming onto the podcast last week to talk all about car modeling and all things auto. We had an absolutely fantastic response. I know Jeff and I heard from many people in the modeling community. They really liked what they heard. So again, I'm always looking for guests and hosts and things like that. It's always easier when there's two people rambling on about scale hobby kits. You can reach out to me at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com and we can arrange to get you on the show. So let's get started with the latest news. Revell Germany has their September releases, and as usual, a wide variety of different items. We're going to start out with, they've got the World War I battleship SMS Koenig in 1/700 scale, 214 parts. This is one of the German Navy's dreadnoughts during the First World War, and it was also at the Battle of Jutland. You can build this up as a complete hull or waterline. There's some structured planking, the usual rotating gun turrets, a nice display stand. And looking at some of the test shots we'll put in the link, it looks like it's going to build up to a fairly nice build for the naval guys. Moving on, they have the German staff car, the G4. This is the 6-wheeled staff car. Was also used for high-ranking officers. This is, as I said, in 1/72 scale, 96 parts. Looks fairly straightforward. Multi-part bodywork, good interior, and nice underside detailing. Plus, you get some rubber tires, metal axles. Set of 2 different decals for 2 different vehicles, obviously. So again, nice little one there. Then they have the, also in 1/72 scale, the IS-2 Soviet heavy tank from the late war. This one is 118 parts. Comes out at just under, I should say, 14 centimeters. So quite a bit there. Looking at the sprue pictures in that, looks very, very nice. There are, the tracks are one-piece molded tracks. You do get 2 different decals. And again, as the test shot looks like, if you're a fan of that, it looks like it's going to build up to be very nice. Moving on for the car guys, the 97 Ford F-150 XLT in 1/25 scale. The F-150 is one of the most best-selling pickup trucks in North America, if not the world. This was actually, the 97 year was the 10th generation of the model. Had a much more rounded front end. It comes with a full-on multi-part V8 engine, a lot of decals for a lot of different registration plates, so you can have this in the US, Netherlands, Great Britain, etc., etc. Again, looks like a fairly nice little build-up, nice looking interior, full-on engine. So yeah, overall, again, something nice, something neat for the car guys. 116 parts. And that should be available fairly soon. Moving on, 1/350 of scale for the sub fans. The German submarine, the Type 7 C-41. 35 parts, 192 millimeters. So a smaller little guy, but this was the most prolific submarine class the German Navy did during the Second World War. So this builds up to U-998. You got a nice little display stand. Includes 20 millimeter and 37 millimeter AA guns, the periscope depth, plus decals for, as I said, U-998 and U-1004. So again, very fairly straightforward buildup. Looks like quite a little bit of detail, so that should be fun for someone. All right, and following on, I'm wondering if this is a reissue because it's such a weird scale. The aircraft carrier Forrestal 1/542, 203 parts, 587 millimeters. This was the first super carrier, shall we say. It was involved with the Suez Crisis, the Gulf War. It was served for over 40 years. This has to be an old mold from what I'm seeing of the pictures here. But again, a lot of people like it. One-piece hull, detailed flight deck, movable lift platform, Sea Sparrow launch system, the Phalanx defense system. You get 4 F-14s, 4 F-18 Hornets, 2 A-6s, 2 S-3s, an EA-6 Prowler, and a couple of Sea King Vikings in a decal set. So yeah, so as I said, that's probably, I haven't had a chance to look on ScaleMates, but it's probably a reissue. I've seen this kit before, and it can be built up really well. So that's what's new from Revell this month. Oh, I should point out, they do have one other item I wanted to point out. That was the Revell 1/48 scale Bristol Bowfighter, the TFX. I know that came out just, I believe, if not now, it's coming out as we speak. I know it's available. This looks like an absolutely gorgeous kit. I know Brett Green at Squadron Scale Workshop did a couple of videos on it. I'm going to include the hyperscale, or I should say the ScaleMate link for this, because it just looks like it can be a nice kit if you're a fan for that. And I've heard some people talking quite a bit about it. So definitely worth looking forward to. Moving on, we have Hasegawa's new releases. This is the October release. They always put theirs out a little bit early. A few different scales, a few different types. So again, quite a few interesting ones. We're going to start with the Focke-Wulf 189 Night Fighter. This is actually a rebox from an ICM kit, as I said, in 1/72 scale, 135 parts, 170 millimeters in length, 255 millimeters in width. Very unique looking aircraft. This was a twin engine, twin boom aircraft that was originally designed for tactical reconnaissance, and then they made a night fighter version, which had guns that would basically, there was an additional gun to shoot forward and upward, so it would go underneath the bomber and shoot it from there. Particularly at, the British ones didn't have downward facing turrets. And this features a nice little radar set. So yeah, 135 parts, 2 sets of decals. Looks pretty nice. Again, we'll have a link to that. Moving on, we have, for the bike fans, the Yamaha YZR 500. This was one for the 1989 All Japan Road Racing Championship. 1/12 scale, 160 parts, just 16 centimeters in length. Again, nicely looking. This is actually a re-release with new decals. This is from the 2012 mold, but a very attractive bike. And as I say, it's from the Nescafe Team Yamaha number 17 bike. So nice looking one. Next up is the Japanese J7W1 Shinden, the interceptor fighter in 1/48. This was a response that they wanted to build something that would take on the B-29s that were going to start raiding the Japanese home islands. It was going to be armed with four 30mm cannons to take on these bombers. It was supposed to be highly maneuverable, but when it was built, but only 2 were finished before the end of the war. They actually talked about a jet-powered prototype, but that never happened. So this features the propeller, the pusher thing. So they've also got, Hasegawa's released this based off a Japanese manga series. So they've got the decals for that, but still builds up to be a nice looking and a very unusual aircraft at 55 parts. So very nice. Moving on to the Russian 1/16, or I-16 I should say, USSR Aces in 1/32 scale. This is a Soviet fighter aircraft. It was the first world's low-wing cantilever monoplane fighter with retractable landing gear, and it was introduced in the mid-30s. It was the backbone of the Soviet Air Force at the beginning of World War II. This is a kit, as I said, 1/32 scale, 115 parts, 192 millimeters, 282 millimeters in width. Couple of decal schemes. It flew in various theaters. It actually also flew in the Spanish Civil War. I didn't realize there were some Soviet fighters there. So that shows you what I know. Again, if you're into this sort of early war, mid-30s, it looks like a nice looking kit that will be set up for you. So quite good. Moving on, 72nd scale, also from Russia, a little bit more modern, the Sukhoi 35S Flanker. This is basically one of the existing molds, but they've added some new decals and a color scheme. This is the Surbukov camouflage, and I know I'm butchering that, my apologies. This camouflage apparently was developed by the Defense Minister of Russia. It has a dark gray color on the top of the airframe and a light blue on the bottom. Again, comes with full decals for both the Russian one and the Chinese variant. As I said, 299 parts, 1/72nd scale. So looking good. That looks like some interesting things from Hasegawa this month. Moving on, Hobby Boss. So they've got only 2 new kits they've announced, at least on one page, but they also have a couple other things. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's cover off the October release. Something else for your German armored train. The German command wagon of BP-42, 1/72nd scale. Basically a rolling artillery piece, 4 guns, on a rotating turret, etc. Comes with the decals, comes with the tracks. Those of you building these, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Again, kind of looks cool. One of those things at some point I'd love to play around with, but yeah, looks pretty nice. So in terms of the part count, over 90 parts, including 4 sections of road bed for a base, and this is a new tool kit. Moving on, for the Chinese Armed Forces 1/35th scale, the PLA ZTL-11. This is a 8-wheeled armored chassis that also has a 105mm cannon, 2 decal schemes. Looks pretty nice. Basically something fairly new. The Chinese have deployed since 2015. So fairly new. It's also referred to as a ZTL-09, which you can also get a fire support vehicle. This is, again, essentially the same thing. Looks good. Fully amphibious. It's got the rubber tires, even a little bit of photo etch. So 290 millimeters in length, 15 sprues, over 360 parts, including some photo etch, a copper cable, etc. It's kind of the stuff you expect to see from Hobby Boss, so fairly nice looking as well. So I also was checking Hobby Boss's website, and sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. I didn't notice they had another product update, and they had this listed under October as well, and that is the B-24 Liberator in 1/32nd scale. Yes, you heard me right, 1/32nd scale. So this is going to be a monster of a kit. I haven't really seen a lot of details beyond that. Just, you know, again, from what I've seen, I found this kind of late tonight as I was preparing for the podcast. So I haven't really looked into a lot of details. I'm sure we'll get some more announcement from it as we go. But yeah, this looks like quite the big beast. So again, my usual question when you get to scales this big is where the heck you're going to put it. And as I say, it's a brand new tool. I'm just looking up here at ScaleMates. No release date yet. Now they said October, so we'll have to see what happens there. So, but again, if you're a B-24 or U.S. World War II bomber in the monster 1/32nd scale, looks like Hobby Boss is having something for you. So that is all from Hobby Boss. Now moving on to some tools. Our good friends at Badger, who I have a couple of their airbrushes. I got an email from them the other day. They're releasing a new SOTAR airbrush, so their SOTAR 2020, which is a very just beautiful airbrush for fine detailing, fine thin lines. That's what I use it for. They're actually coming out with a 2020 Slim, and they've released it. And basically, just a beautiful looking airbrush. I've thrown a couple of links into the show notes about it. So some people on their Facebook group asked what's the difference between that and your traditional SOTAR. Well, they say here, and I quote, Permaseal nozzle base, field adjustable inner seal, and no color cup. Just a detailed capacity color cavity. So that's the biggest thing I noticed. You don't get a big color, well, big, it was small to begin with. You get a very tiny little reservoir that maybe will hold about 12 drops of paint. I think the idea is, you know, this is for really detailed work. So you can basically, you know, shoot a couple of drops of paint, which is what you need, give it a quick clean, and away you go again. But yeah, overall, like I said, nice looking airbrush. And the neatest thing is they've got an introductory offer through their website, which again, I'll have the link. Normally this airbrush is apparently going for $190 US. They're going to have an introductory offer for $95. And that includes shipping with the buy it now pricing. So I happen to be on the website. If I look under domestic, shipping's apparently only a couple of bucks, $97 US if you select the US one. Canadian customers, shipping's a little bit more, 115 US all in. And international customers, let's see if they have anything here. It says 126, and that's all in US funds. So still pretty reasonable. I took advantage of their anniversary sale last year, and I picked myself up an original Sotar, and I absolutely love it. So we'll probably hear some more from this as it gets into the hands of people. Like I said, very nice looking airbrush. I will put a link to both the Facebook group and the Badger actual ordering page. We'll do that. And they've also said, I kind of chuckle on this, on their Facebook post, micro details coming soon, pun intended. So there we go. Someone's got a good sense of humor at Badger. And that is and everything we're talking about from the news section. If I look at the scalemates.com, the hot kit sections, what are people talking about? I see here Panda Hobby's new high mobility engineer excavators getting a lot of talk. This is like your basic excavator vehicle you'd see at a construction site, but designed to be well armored if someone's shooting at you where you're trying to dig a ditch or a hole like that. It looks like a very nice looking kit in 1/35 scale. They still show it as a future release, so obviously people are talking about it. The Tamiya M551 Sheridan, that's being still talked about a lot, and of course the Grumman F14D Tomcat, Ming's Jag Panther, and a few other ones. Again, quite a few here. Everything down to the Vickers Wellington. One that interests me is the Supermarine Spitfire Mark I. Tamiya is apparently coming out with a reissue in 1/48 scale. Haven't seen anything else about it. It's marked as a new tool and with basically a full kit. So this basically updates the original. The last time they did a tooling of this kit was 1993. So a lot of it's just been some new parts added over the years and stuff like that. So based on some of Tamiya's other kits, I'm really looking forward to this one. Not that I need another Spitfire in my stash, but there we go. So yeah, so that's all the news that's fit to talk about, to print, whatever. As normal, if you have any other news or any other new hot kits that you think we should be covering here, feel free to contact me and I'll give those options for you at the end of the show. All right, what else has been happening? The London Scale Model Show happened last weekend, and that's the closest model show to me, also put on by my local IPMS chapter, which I'm a member. Absolutely great time. We had several hundred models on the table, a lot of great vendors, a lot of people. I shot and recorded a lot of video and audio I'm going to be featuring over the next few weeks, both here on the podcast and in our Scale Model Show channel. So slowly but surely working my way through that. I did pick up a few items. Why else wouldn't you, right? Bunch of tools, so look for some upcoming reviews on my personal site at www.blackfire.ca. That's where I do my builds and stuff like that, and I also do some reviews there. And then also, I also got a chance to interview a lot of good businesses, a lot of vendors, a lot of people. So the first one I'm going to feature here, this is an audio portion of an interview I did with Anthony Goodman from Goodman Models. They do these great super sanding blocks. These are basically sanding blocks with different grits. They're waterproof, but they're on a dead flat plastic, very hard plastic surface. So it's really good for doing a good, if you need something that's dead flat. I actually did a review on my own website 2 years ago on this product, and I still stand by it. It's one of the things I regularly reach for. Just really good thing, really good product. So here's the interview I did, and as normal, I will have the link to his Facebook page with information where you can order these blocks. So without further ado, here is the interview. I should also point out the audio quality is not the same as you'll hear here, because obviously we were at the show with a lot of background noise, and I've done some editing to get it back, but I do apologize for that. Anyway, here we go.
So I'm here with Anthony Goodman of Goodman Models.
Hello.
We've actually, I'm a big fan of his product here, the sanding blocks, which are right down here. I featured them actually. I did a review. He was nice enough to give me a set last 2 years ago for a review. Probably 2 years ago, and I've been very impressed. And it's still something I use every time I model. So why don't you tell us a bit about the product?
Okay. So the Super Sanding Blocks are a set of hard sanders. So it gives you a different kind of precision when you're working on your models, you're sanding seams, you're evening out parts, you're working on armor kits, you're working on airplane kits, and you just need a precision flat surface. So it's not a replacement to any kind of soft sander, flexible sander, sandpaper, but an additional tool for your tool bench. So in the box, they're all color coded.
That's awesome.
So you can see them on the sides, right?
Very cool.
It's on both sides.
Yep.
And you get a legend and a little instruction sheet. So these blocks are wet dry.
Okay.
I'll show you right here.
Yep.
This is what you get in your basic set.
Right.
So I've included 6 grits, 80, 180, 220, 320, 400, 600. And that's just to cover the basic modeler's needs, right? From really rough. If you're working on resin, that's an 80 grit block. That will help you get through a plug really quickly or a nasty looking seam.
And we know some guys in the club who love their resin and they go through it like a...
Absolutely. And right up to working on your seams and reshaping plastic with your 180.
And I know one of the things you said about before, because they're machined to be perfectly level, you can get a good level sand, and that's one thing I like about it.
And that's what I was missing, or I was having problems with the edges of models being rolled over, and it's not quite right, or just being the wrong angle. And when you get up here, I've got 400 and 600s, and you can really polish them if you're doing wet sanding. So these ones are wet sanding, and that one's just a rough one.
And you can wash them off. I've done that. Yeah, you do it. You just that's exactly. There you go.
Toothbrush, a little bit of water.
I know I know you demoed these at the club a few years ago, and that's exactly what you did.
Actually, this is the same set I've been demoing.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, the set I have, I use it. It's still going strong.
Yeah.
So that's great. So where can we find these?
Yeah. So they are available mail order. I'm at most shows, and you can find me on Facebook at Goodman Models.
Awesome.
And
And what's roughly the price of them right now?
It's $20 a set for your basic 6-pack. And I am planning on having individual replacement packs available.
That'll be awesome as well.
Some people tend to use up one faster than the other, so it's going to offer 3 packs of each grid available.
That'll be great. And as I said, we're going to have the links. I'll have the links in the video and show notes. Are you going to be at any other shows in the next couple of months?
Every show in Southwest Ontario for sure.
Okay, good.
I'm available.
Good to know. And as I said, you're easy to find on the web. And again, just simply fantastic product. It's one of those products like Anthony knows I'm a tool guy. I love tools, but sometimes when you find something that works, you go, how come I didn't think of that? So
it's a simple thing, but it really helps out, especially if you want that extra control.
Exactly. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, and and as I say, GoodmanModels.com or just on Facebook.
Facebook right now.
Facebook right now. That's right.
Goodman Models on Facebook.
It's easy to find, and I know you respond back quick.
Yeah, you can order directly right off there, or you can just reach out in the message. I can send them anywhere.
Perfect.
So, absolutely.
Perfect. Exactly. Okay. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, sir.
Well, thank you again to Anthony for that interview. And again, I do apologize for the audio quality. I'm going to be playing with some different techniques in that to try and make that a little bit better. As I said, it was a challenging environment to record in. Also, as well, we're going to have the whole video with audio up on the YouTube channel, which I'm going to be creating this week, and I'll have a link on that. And some of the other videos as well, we're going to have it there as well. So, as I say, your patience with the quality is appreciated. All right, what's on the bench? What have I been working on? The 1/35th scale Tamiya Panther hit a small snag. I've got the build logging on the links. Got the tracks painted, got the hull painted, looks really good. The old vinyl tracks, managed to get one set on, put the sprocket on. The other set didn't quite fit all the way around, which I thought was rather weird. Everything looked fine. So I decided to slightly stretch them, and I think I slightly stretched them too much because it snapped in 2 pieces. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brief little break. I did ask on Facebook some of the groups there for people's advice, and I got some good ideas. I think I'm going to make a little diorama with something to focus on the the tracks breaking. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, basically, just going to take a little break. It was designed to be used as a test bed anyway for weathering and stuff like that for the first time, so I'm not too concerned. But I am going to start working on the Hasegawa, the F-18 Hornet, the A model. I did do a inbox review again on blackfire.ca. It's an older kit, released 1987, and there's been about 50 variations, mostly decals, etc. since then. So kind of looking forward to doing a 72nd scale jet aircraft again. So yeah, that'll be kind of cool. All right, sites and tips. Basically, I only got one this week. Jim from a blog called A Scale Canadian, and if you haven't subscribed, I suggest you do. There's always some interesting stuff. We're going to hopefully get him on the podcast at some point in the future. I have reached out to him, and he has expressed some interest, so that'll be kind of neat. So he suggests go to Amazon.ca, do a search on disposable eyeliner brushes. He got 100 for under $10, and it's a great idea if you're, let's say, using Mr. Surfacer or liquid cement, and you don't want to worry about having to clean out a perfectly good brush or figure out what the thinner is for that, etc. These things, they're very fine-looking brushes, just enough that you can, again, get the primer, the surface, Mr. Surfacer, or whatever, onto the area you're working on, and then you can just throw it out. So I thought that was a really good ideas. So yeah, overall that was really good. All right, upcoming events. As I said, our show is finished. There is some other shows coming up in the area. I'm going to be working on a show page. Not sure how big I'm going to make it, but we're going to try and feature what we can for shows, or at least links to sites that have the show listings, because I think if I tried to track every IPMS show or model show worldwide, that would be a full-time job. So we're going to not do that. So that's going to be it for this week on the podcast. As normal, we try and record every 2 weeks, and we are available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and we recently got ourselves a link at Stitcher, so that's going to be updated in the show notes as well. Feel free to like and subscribe to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Scale Model Podcast. And you can always let us know if you have comments, suggestions, maybe you want to be on the show. Feel free to reach out to me at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. The webpage, of course, is scalemodelpodcast.com. And as I did mention, we are going to be setting up a YouTube page. I'm not sure if I'll have the link up in time for this podcast, but it will definitely be on the show notes for the next podcast and, of course, on the page. So for now, my name is Stuart Clark. Thank you for listening to the Scale Model Podcast, and be well.